Hi everyone, this is Emma from Emma Bellish Cosplay. I get asked a lot about how I get the seam line on my Asari headpiece blended so smoothly into my skin, so I decided to put together a video of how I do my Asari makeup. At this point, it's about 4:45 in the morning on Saturday of Comic-Con. It usually takes about 4 to 5 hours to get ready for Aria. What I start off by doing is just using an astringent. I'm using witch hazel to remove any oil from my skin so that the adhesive adheres really well. The first thing that I do is start covering up my eyebrows. I use a plain white craft glue stick for this, just one of the ones that like kids use in elementary school. I start by brushing it kind of against the hairs, backwards against the hairs of my eyebrows. And then I change direction and usually smooth it out and go in the same direction as the hairs. What I'm doing right now is just using a popsicle stick to take off, to put some thicker layers of glue over the eyebrows once I've got them glued down. And that just adds some buildup and covers up the texture of the hairs. So right now what I'm just doing is powdering the glue to get rid of any tack. I'm just using baby powder, and then what I'll do is I'll put another layer of glue over top just to smooth out any little textures. You need to be careful at this point because once you've got a thick buildup of glue, it's really easy to accidentally smear it or pull it away if it's not completely dry yet. So just be careful when you're doing that. So now I'm just getting ready to put my Asari headpiece on. I'm using some rubbing alcohol and some Kleenex to just get rid of any leftover makeup from the last time I was wearing it. And I'm going to clean the inside of the seams as well, just to get rid of any adhesive that's left over. Usually when I take this costume off, I'm ready to just drop and go to bed, so I don't usually bother cleaning it after I take it off. So this is prosthetic adhesive. There's tons of different kinds out there. There's spirit gum. I've used Prosade before. I ran out of Prosade a little bit ago, and the costume shop near me didn't have that particular brand, but they recommended this other one called Telesis Beta Bond Plus, which is what I'm using right now. They all work about the same, in the same way. You just spread some onto your skin, and you also spread some onto the prosthetic. You let it dry until it's tacky, and then you just stick the two sides together and they bond. So I'm just grabbing some makeup sponges and the prosthetic adhesive, and I'm just dabbing a tiny bit right along the seam of the whole prosthetic. And that just makes sure that I get a really good seal and that the edges are completely stuck down before I start using the liquid latex to blend in the seam. So at this point, I was having some problems with a small piece of the prosthetic not sticking to my neck. So what I did was grab a paintbrush, dipped it in rubbing alcohol, and then lightly slid the paintbrush underneath the prosthetic. What this does is it re-moistens the adhesive on the skin and allows me to properly adhere the headpiece. And now what I'm doing is just powdering the adhesive to remove any leftover tack. So now I'm ready to start blending the edges of the seam into my skin. I'm using Ben Nye liquid latex, and I find the easiest way to apply it is by using a clean finger. Make sure that you wash your hands before you do this. And I just take a little bit on my finger and then run my finger kind of along the edge of the prosthetic, pushing the latex kind of up into the edge of the prosthetic, but I try not to get too much on the actual headpiece. And make sure when you're doing this that you actually clean the latex off of your finger each time that you dip it back into the latex. The reason for this is because latex sticks to itself, so if you have any leftover dried latex on your hand, once you try applying it onto your face, it's going to stick to any of the dried latex on your face and then pull up the latex that you just worked really hard to apply smoothly. One of the things that you want to make sure you do is powder the latex layers between applications, and what that does is just remove some of the stickiness of the dried latex and will make sure that the latex on your finger sponge doesn't stick to the latex on your face as easily, because that's really where most of the lumps are going to come from, is accidentally sticking dried latex to the latex on your face, and then it just lifts it up and it's really frustrating. So at this point, I'm just focusing on blending the forehead of my headpiece. Because I was still really new at casting when I made this, the edge came out a lot thicker than I would have liked. The thinner the edge is on your prosthetic, the easier it's going to be to hide and blend into your skin. I think mine is about 1 millimeter thick, which is why it takes me so long to blend it. Really the most important part of this step is patience. It takes me about an hour to 2 hours to get it all blended in smoothly. It's really, really important that you only apply thin layers at a time. If you apply it too thick, it just bunches up and you get globs of latex and lumps, and it doesn't look good at all. So slow and steady is just really the key to getting smooth seam lines. I honestly don't know how many layers I do of this. I just feel the edge of the prosthetic, and if it feels smooth, then I know I'm starting to get close. Eventually I do stop using my finger and start using a sponge, and I just stipple the latex over top of both the prosthetic and my skin. And that just helps create the stipple texture, just makes it a little bit easier to disguise the fact that there's a seam underneath, and the texture blends really well from your skin into the headpiece. So what I'm doing right here is I'm just using my thread snips to trim off any lumps that have formed while I was applying the latex. If you get rid of them while they're still small, they don't have the chance to turn into something bigger later on. And at this point, I'm just starting to stipple the latex on with a makeup sponge instead. And I'll alternate back and forth between using my finger and using the sponge at this point. You want to make sure that you change sponges really often too. As the latex dries on the sponges, you risk the chance of, again, pulling up the latex on your skin. So I usually change sponges. Basically, every time I do go around my face once or twice, I start using a new sponge. So at this point, the latex is all done being applied. Just make sure you powder the latex really well at the end of that, otherwise the makeup will have a hard time sticking to it. At this point, I'm ready to start applying the face paint. The makeup that I'm going to be using is Maron Paradise Cake Makeup. It's a water-activated makeup, which means that you spritz it with water, and then spritz it with water, then you use a sponge to kind of mix the pigment and the water together and load up your sponge with it, and then you just sponge it onto your face. Before you start applying it though, what you want to do is put a layer of barrier spray down on your skin. That does two things. First of all, it acts a little bit like a primer on top of the latex and just helps the makeup stick to the latex a little bit better. And the other thing that does is prevents the pigment from the makeup from sticking to your skin for a couple of days after you remove the makeup. So that way you're not walking around with purple skin after you're done wearing your costume. So you just let that dry, and then you start applying the first layer of makeup. Then I usually put barrier spray down between the layers of makeup as well. I usually do 2 to 3 layers depending on how good of coverage I get. And then I can start applying beauty makeup. So I'm using a purple eyeshadow primer, or eyelid primer, on my eyelids and as well as on my lips. The primer is really important because eyeshadow doesn't really like to stick to the cake makeup, so you really need it if you want to make your eyes pop. It also works really well as a lipstick. It stays on your lips really well all day, even though you're drinking water or eating. You don't really need to do too much touching up, so that's really handy. The brand that I'm using is Neutrogena Crease Proof Eyeshadow in Stay Put Plum. But any eyelid primer should be fine. The next thing that I do is I start applying black eyeliner all around my eyes. I usually use a pencil for this just so that I can smudge it and make it a little bit thicker, since Aria's got some pretty dark eyes. For eyeshadow, I just start out with black eyeshadow and then I'll blend it out later with the purple palette. Here I'm just using a purple eyeliner to fill in my lips. The last step that I do when I'm done the beauty makeup is contouring. With the purple makeup, your face can look really, really flat in photos, so I use some purple eyeshadow to just accentuate some really sharp features that Aria has. I use the dark purple eyeshadow to make some shadows underneath my cheekbones and like along the sides of my nose and underneath my chin, just to make my face look sharper. And then I use the lighter eyeshadow to do my my cheeks, underneath my eyes, on my forehead, and just down the top of my nose, just to brighten up the face a little bit. So the last step in this whole process is to do Aria's facial tattoos. The makeup that I'm using for this is called PAX makeup, and it's spelled P-A-X makeup, and what it is just prosthetic adhesive and acrylic paint mixed 50-50. This stuff is super durable. Some people use it as body paint if they need it to stay on for a really, really long time. It's semi-waterproof, and it's a pain in the butt to remove. For the small quantity that's going on my face, it's not too bad. I've used it as body paint before, and it took ages and ages to scrub off. But the nice thing about it is that I was able to match the paint to my headpiece, so that's why I decided to go with the PAX, because the tattoo actually extends onto the headpiece, so I was able to just paint it onto the headpiece initially and then paint the tattoos matching.